then is the leadership. Who then are the leaders? Now, when you have all those factors in place, you need the right leadership. You need the right approaches to human resource management. You need to have to inculcate continuous innovation and performance enhancement. And you need to ensure benchmarks get continuously upgraded. And so, you need to understand what kind of leadership should be there to galvanize all these factors that are already present, assuming it's already present.
Leaders provide a sense of purpose. That is why we are doing it, which is why we are doing it. There must be a sense of purpose in what you want to do, isn't it? If your leader asks you to do something, there must be a sense of purpose. Why I'm doing it? If the people don't understand why they are doing it, they are not going to do it for you, isn't it? So leaders must give a sense of purpose to the people that they are leading. Leaders provide a sense of direction, which is what? Which way we should go. Okay? Direction. Because there are so many directions to go. You must pick the direction where people know a clear direction we are heading. Leaders give a sense of focus. What are our priorities? Kalau tidak ada focus, you are caca porba. And you don't get anything. You get, resources are not being concentrated in the areas that you should. Okay? So focus is very important to achieve results.
Take away from leadership, for me, one is you can't be a leader without having followers, and you can't have followers without being able to at least communicate to them what you're thinking, and to have a vision, a clear enough vision that sells, and you've got to learn to communicate. So, number two is that you've got to be able to have empathy. You've got to be able to put yourself in the situation of the other person you're dealing with, so that when there is a crisis, or when there is a conflict, or when there is a tension in the moment of wherever you're working, you actually can figure out a way to get out. And the third thing is, in good leadership, I feel, there will always be bad followers and good followers. Don't be afraid to kick the bad ones out. And it takes a lot of courage to then say, you know what, I think you and I need to go our separate ways because we're not good to be together. If people want to start a new organization or whatever, go ahead.
This is the one letter that describes leadership. I think the Chinese, can you read it? No, you can't read it. I'm not going to teach Chinese as well because I learned this letter when I was doing my advanced management program in Oxford. This letter means in Chinese, anyone knows Chinese here? Yeah. Yes, this actually means listen. Listen. That is the most important point on leadership now. You all must start to listen. Now, listen is a combination of 6 letters. I will start with the heart. This is the heart. Looks like the heart chambers actually. Right? This is how in Mandarin they call it sing, is it? Right? Yeah, that means the heart. To touch your heart. Listen with your heart. Do things what you are doing today with your heart. Feel for your patients. Feel for what you do. This is the most strongest in terms of do things sincere to your heart. Your heart. Right? This is the first letter. Heart. I remember this letter. First heart. So whatever you do, you must listen with your heart. Leadership with your heart. You must have a heart. Don't be heartless. Right? After a bypass surgery, you may become heartless. But this is an important tool that make and break a person. Because the patients, the community, the nation can feel you. This is...
It's something I like to do. You remember that when I thought about establishing astronomy. I became like an evangelist, going out there speaking to people, and I think I slowly acquired the information on what is it that people want to hear, and at what level should I be targeting the knowledge. Because if I put the knowledge way up too high, nobody's going to understand, and if it's too low, people will get bored. So how to target your audience. But it's a skill you acquire as you go along. But of course, being thrown into a leadership position also forces you to talk in public. But the ultimate is, of course, being thrown to the UN because that's when you really have to communicate and communicate well.
So leadership does affect culture as well, much as culture affects leadership. It's been so extensively studied, I don't have to tell you more about this. Well, the definition of culture, I just take it, nowadays you just have Google and you get anything. So I think this is from one of the dictionaries, you just read it, you don't have to really talk about it right now. But it is important, it depends on the capacity for learning. Do not think that culture is automatic. Of course your language can be automatic because that's what you speak at home, but many things you will have to learn. And it was just yesterday when I was taking my 4-year-old grandson for his play date in his friend's house. As he was getting into my car, the father was reminding him, Alfie, what do you do when you go to Kamisak's house afterwards? Well, I have to behave myself. What else? I have to say please and thank you. So he has to be reminded, you must say please and you must say thank you. So children don't learn that automatically, you must teach them. So a lot of cultural aspects will have to be taught, and you transmit it from one generation to another generation through the transmission.
I think first of all, you need to know your subject. I think they need to trust and respect you. If they do not your subordinates do not trust or respect you, it's very difficult to lead. Second part, communications that I mentioned earlier. Third, knowledge, experience, business context or networking, and a lot of patience. So I would say that all those components that makes a leader would actually make you an effective and a successful leader eventually. We talk about the action that you take, and apart from what we have within you as well. And having this knowledge is not about, again, what you've learned in the past. It's always, every day is a new day.
Whether in corporate or in government, you must be very clear on your mandate. Before you do anything, make sure you perform a full diagnosis of the company or the organization that you're joining. Also establish what the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and the threats facing that organization. You then match the tasks that are required with the availability of talent that you have in the company before you start to bring in external reinforcements to fill in the gap. You then revisit the vision and mission to ensure its relevance, to formulate strategies and action plans together with the management team. So this is something that you don't do on your own, you do it together with the team, and make sure that you syndicate them with all the stakeholders, including the external stakeholders. So apart from your board, you need to engage with your shareholders, your employees, regulators, and business partners where relevant. Once you come up with your vision, mission, your plans, you need to communicate your plans and update them regularly with all levels of employees. Set clear and measurable short-term and long-term targets with clear timeline and accountability. Implement a balanced scorecard or performance management system in your organization. So in our case, government has already done that with our KPI system and so on, and align the interests of management with that of shareholders. And once you are able to achieve the improvements for the company, you then make sure that you share the rewards, not just among the management staff, but also with all the performing employees. So this will be some of the lessons learned from the company's perspective.
My take-home message. So I guess many of you, when you guys came here, you see that the topic is quite technical and innovating health systems. But my objective is not to be technical, but the take-home message is a bit technical, because the third sector, as you all know, maybe some of you don't know, it means the non-profit sector. So we have the for-profit, we have the public sector. So anything in the middle is the third sector, or we call it the non-profit sector or civil society sector. So in Malaysia, our health system is, or as compared to Southeast Asia, ours is one of the best. So maybe the third sector is not as prominent as those countries like Cambodia, in Laos, or in Vietnam. But it remains important in complementing health system, especially for those who are marginalized. For example, this morning we just talked with Dr. Desi just told me, like in Sabah we have a lot of stateless people, and we have a lot of refugees coming in from Myanmar, and we have a lot of migrants, and these people are not covered by the public health system fully. And through UNHCR, maybe they can get half discount, but still they cannot afford it, right? So the third sector is very important to complement the health system to provide healthcare coverage for these populations that are not covered in order to achieve universal health coverage, especially in terms of financing, service delivery, and the human resources. And it's important because they are able to innovate.
So always try your best to think out of the box and how you can innovate by yourself. Think of an issue and all that. So if you see, Bill Gates himself has clearly said that in the next few decades, millions are most likely to die, not due to war or missiles, but microbes. So that was one of the very strong statements that moved me to work towards global health or predictive analytics in infectious disease. And when you speak about artificial intelligence, how many of you all know what is AI? Artificial tahulah kan? Oh ni artificial lah. There you go. So AI is basically like a human intelligence. This is artificial intelligence, whereby we feed in millions and millions and millions of data points to make machines understand how does certain things behave. So keep in mind, a human mind, we can only compute maximum. A high IQ person can only compute 9 variables at once. 9 variables, okay? That is like you're super genius. Like you consider yourself not genius, then maybe 2 or 3. So if your wife asks you to cook and asks you to type, you can't do that, you see?
Responsibility, you are accountable. And accountability suddenly grew upon me, and you learn how to solve problems. You learn how to not blame others. Solve problem yourself. And there's no one else in the world to be blamed except you. But it's a good attitude, right? In reality, any problem is a combination of you and many others. In reality, right? But the attitude of accepting accountability and thinking of all kinds of solutions to solve the problem because you're forced to do that is one of the best lessons.
Observation about myself to you is that I come to life when I'm actually out there with people and helping people. I'm actually, believe it or not, a politician saying this is really, really weird, but I'm actually a very shy person. Honestly, I'm not good with small talk. I'm good with big talk. Big talk. Macam ni lah cakap besar, big talk, But if you put me in a room together with you and I have to talk to you about something, small talk, I'm terrible. But I come to life. And I come to life because I believe we are part of a bigger story here. It's not just about us. We're part of a bigger story. I want to end by saying that whatever we do, we need to take the big picture into account. And this is so difficult because on a daily basis, kita bagi tumpuan kepada kerja kita. So we're never able to step back and look at the bigger picture. I'm very thankful because PM this year, he gave me a task where I was able to step back and take a big picture look at what's going on. Not just a big picture look, but a look into the future.
When you have an accurate perception of how others see you, the reality is that you're also very critical about yourself. Critical about your competencies, critical about your capabilities, critical about your vision, critical about how you do things. every little thing is that when you keep reflecting, you will always remember and you always be critical of our own leadership. And it does help you keep your feet on the ground.
Roles, I like this by Urbanice, although it's quite some time. Leaders provide what followers want. When followers want meaning and direction, leaders provide sense of purpose. When they want the trust, you have to have an authentic, trusting relationship. And hope and optimism, when the followers want, leader must be endurance, confidence in the way he or she handles. Yeah? And of course, manifesto, they want result. Yeah? So leaders have to be biased towards action. Get the results. Be courageous to do it. Yeah? And if you are not able to deliver, you have to explain why. I also like Manfred Cataveras, yeah, at this INSEAD. He said there's 12 dimensions of leadership, and it comprised of 3 sub dimensions. One, you lead the organization. The other, you lead others. And then most important is leading yourself. You must be strong. You must have the tenacity, EI. You must have life balance and resilient to stress. Ya, saya rasa banyak ni yang sakit kanser ke, yang heart attack. It's due now to more not able to manage stress. Yeah, not able to manage stress. So, of course, leading organization, you have to have the vision. Leading others, you have to empower all those. But these are the traits that we have to look at. Leading the organization, leading others, the people, and leading ourselves. And great leaders don't come without integrity. There are no moral shortcuts in the game of business or life. Yeah? There are 3 kinds of people: there's unsuccessful, temporarily successful, and those that come and remain successful. Those that remain, meaning what is the difference? Character. In our school, unfortunately, sometimes character building, character building is not given the preference or not given the attention as to skill or as to the knowledge that we are sharing. If you share knowledge, you share competency. To me, most important is character building. And General Norman of Germany, he's in the army. He said leadership is a combination of strategy and character. If you must be without one, which one will you choose? So we know that. And I also like this. Maybe most of you know. Warren Buffett say, in looking for people to hire, look for 3 qualities: integrity, intelligence, and energy. And if they don't have the first, the other 2 will kill you. The other integrity, they will lie you. They will lie to you. They will manipulate you. They will do such nonsense, that you cannot manage them. And I like also Henry Krebs, who says, if you don't have integrity, you have nothing. You can't buy integrity. You can have all the money in the world. You can keep many things. You can keep gold. You can keep money. You can keep whatever that you want to keep. But if you are not a moral and ethical person, you really have nothing.
My link with the best university is, I always tell them that you already have done a lot in your side. I want you all to be coming, the good people to come to Malaysia and be my guests. And that's why, of course, they feel very comfortable now coming to Malaysia. And I always say that we can learn from each other, but we will learn more from you because of your experience and your wisdom and what have you. But it's never wrong to be humble. And when you are humble, people will help you learn. That's what we want to do. And we are not finished. We are all the time looking out for new technology, new way of doing things, and change we have to embrace. And that's why my advice to our people that always embrace change and never say that we are the best. No, the world is a global village. Competition is very key.
So, who are you? Saya Dr. Mohaya. Saya Dr. Mohaya. So, we review again of the way we live our life. Every day, kita fokus kat sini ke kat sini? Who can angkat tangan? Every day, you train your children, your relationship with your staff, with your husband, as a senior. Kita nak lead orang tu, we lead with this or with this? Honestly, okay, angkat tangan. Siapa rasa selama ini, sebelum hari ini, kita lead with this? Angkat tinggi lah. Lead with this? Okay, congratulations. Good. Okay, so personal fulfillment you're talking about here. Meaning when you sleep tonight, you feel a girl. Okay? And
if you read leadership management books and articles, there's been a lot of discussion around do women actually perhaps have characteristics that might make us better leaders. Sorry, Datuk Chong and Datuk Hisham Shah, you know, no disrespect meant to you, but this is I think, you know, after many decades, I think we women are keen to share, you know, the leadership positions with men as well. Now, I believe there are some characteristics of women that lend us as perhaps more suited in the leadership position in this new 21st century. Some of the characteristics are, by nature, we prefer to work in a collegial atmosphere. We tend to be task-focused. We promote cooperation and collaboration. We, in our communication also, we tend to be, I guess for want of a better word, gentler, and most women leaders, many women leaders, you see some very famous faces there, have a transformational leadership style. And I think compared to decades ago when an autocratic, top-down kind of management may have been more acceptable and more common, I think these days with greater awareness and a more open society, perhaps the softer side of how women lead may lend itself a little bit better, and hence now you see many women holding key positions, not just here in Malaysia, but also globally.
I think if you wanted to set up a compliance and monitoring team, it's important that CMT members be given access to relevant locations and data in order to perform its function. Number two, within the CMT structure itself, they should have focus or be embedded into different clusters so that they become part of the team and they understand the context and the issues that the clusters are facing in terms of solving problems, but then we come back together as an overall group to discuss what is happening. But key is that the CMT members still need to be independent and are accountable only to the task force commander in order to ensure objectivity in reporting. But because they're embedded in the clusters, of course, it's really important, point number 3, for them to be able to work collaboratively with people and share information. And CMT members must also be willing to go down to the ground. It is definitely not a desk job. You need to roll up your sleeves, go into the thick of things to really understand.
For the registration of this TGP Inspirational Leadership Podium, please scan the QR code provided and fill in the required details. We would like to bring your attention to the use of Slido, a platform for you to voice your questions if you have any. For the certificate of attendance, please scan the QR code or click the link given at the end of the podium. The e-certificate will be emailed directly to your registered email. very good evening to our honourable guests. Yang berbahagia, Datuk Dr. Hisham Shah bin Muhammad Ibrahim, former Deputy Director General of Health, Research and Technical Support, Town Planner and Professional Technologist, Puan Norliza binti Hashim, Chief Executive of Urbanice Malaysia, Dr. Nurhayati binti Ibrahim, Head of TGP Secretariat, Institute for Health Management, all the heads of program, divisional directors, state directors, hospital directors, yang berbahagia Datuk, Datin, ladies and gentlemen. We would like to welcome all of you to the second TGP Inspirational Leadership Podium for 2022, entitled Transformational Leadership, Redesigning Healthcare to Current Nuances. Today's event is co-organized by TGP Talents of Cohort 9 and the TGP Secretariat, Institute for Health Management. I am Dr. Faizah binti Muhammad Zain, will be your Master of Ceremony for today. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, TGP, the Talent Grooming Program for Healthcare Professionals, is a specialized program designed by the Institute for Health Management, National Institute of Health, in identifying and nurturing potential leaders for MOH future succession planning. This Inspirational Leadership Podium is the second TGP Podium, organized virtually this year by the TGP in the National Institute of Health. This podium will act as a platform to provide opportunities for sharing of knowledge between our local notable public figures, talents, and other technical officers in MOH. With today's podium theme, Transformational Leadership, Redesigning Healthcare to Current Nuances, we hope that this event provides you with the knowledge and wisdom to embrace the new norm during this challenging time, based on the valuable experiences that will be shared by our speaker. Before we begin, let us all sing our national anthem and the official song of the Ministry of Health, Kami Sedia Membantu.
Tingkatkan taraf kesihatan secara profesional, khidmat diberi kecemerlangan matlamat kami dimanapun jua di setiap waktu kami sedia membantu. Kami penyayang pada semua, bagi kami tiada beza. Bertanggung jawab amalan kita, kesihatan dan maruah dijaga. Bangsa yang sihat aset negara, kualiti hidup dipelihara. Berpasukan, berganding tangan, bertingkatkan taraf kesihatan. Secara profesional khidmat diberi kecemerlangan matlamat kami dimanapun jua di setiap waktu kami sedia membantu. Kami penyayang pada semua, bagi kami tiada beza. Bertanggungjawab amalan kita, kesihatan dan maruah dijaga. Secara profesional khidmat diberi, kecemerlangan matlamat kami. Dimanapun jua di setiap waktu, kami sedia membantu. Dimanapun jua di setiap waktu, kami sedia membantu.
Ladies and gentlemen, we would like to grace our auspicious occasion today by recitation of prayers by our very own talent, Dr. Muhammad Nur Fazli bin Muhammad Hulaimi.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Allahumma inna nas'alaka salamatan fid din, wa afiyatan fil jasad, wa ziyadatan fil ilm, wa barakatan fil rizq, wa taubatan qabla maut, wa rahmatan indal maut, wa maghfiratan ba'dal maut. Allahumma hawin alaina fi sakaratil maut, wa najati minan nar, wal afwa indal hisab. Ya Allah, Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim, sesungguhnya kami berkumpul pada pagi ini di Talent Grooming Program Inspirational Leadership Podium kali kedua tahun 2022 untuk menuntut ilmu-Mu. Bukakanlah hati-hati kami, lapangkanlah dada kami untuk menimba ilmu-Mu yang sangat luas bagi mengembangkan ilmu pengetahuan kami sebagai hamba-Mu yang Engkau redai. Allahumma firli zunubi wali walidayya warhamma kama rabbayani saghira. Ya Allah, Ya Karim, jadikanlah kami, warga Kementerian Kesihatan Malaysia, sebagai hamba-hamba-Mu yang sentiasa mendapat hidayah dan petunjuk-Mu. Tambahkanlah kecintaan kami kepada segala kebaikan dan teruskanlah istiqamah kami untuk berkhidmat dan menabur bakti kepada bangsa, agama dan negara. Ya Allah, Ya Wadud, kami memohon rahmat agar dikurniakan keampunan, keberkatan dan kesihatan yang baik kepada seisi keluarga kami serta sekalian yang hadir bagi meraihkan majlis ini. Justru itu, berkatilah dan rahmatilah perhimpunan kami ini. Sinarilah hati-hati kami dengan cahaya dan hidayah-Mu. Semoga dengannya kami mudah menerima dan menghayati serta mengamalkan ilmu-Mu. Ya Allah, jadikanlah perhimpunan kami ini sebagai perhimpunan yang dirahmati dan perpisahan kami pula selepas ini sebagai perpisahan yang diberkati dan dilindungi. Rabbana atina fid dunya hasanah wa fil akhirati hasanah wa qina azaban nar. Wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.
Thank you, Dr. Muhammad Nur Fazli. As a start to our event today, please join me to welcome Yang Berbahagia, Datuk Dr. Hisham Shah bin Muhammad Ibrahim, the former Deputy Director General of Health, Research and Technical Support, to deliver his welcoming speech.
Assalamualaikum, salam sejahtera, salam keluarga Malaysia, and a very good evening. Yang berusaha, town planner, and professional technologists, Puan Norliza Hashim, Chief Executive Officer, Urbanice Malaysia, our esteemed speaker for today. Yang Berusaha, Dr. Nur Hayati binti Ibrahim, the former Director of Institute for Health Management, National Institutes of Health, and as well as the former head of the TGP Secretariat. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm pleased to welcome you to our second virtual TGP Inspirational Leadership Podium in 2022 with the theme today of Transformational Leadership, Redesigning Healthcare to Current Nuances. This podium is co-organized by the TGP Talent Cohort 9 and the TGP Secretariat at the Institute for Health Management. In 2015, TGP started their first Inspirational Podium series. Subsequently, it was upgraded to a 1.5-day TGP Inspirational Symposium in 2019 with 2 plenary sessions by renowned leaders and knowledge-sharing sessions by our TGP alumni after 13 podium series of individual speakers. After a brief hiatus in 2020 due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the TGP Inspirational Podium was once again organized in March of 2022 this year, this time on a virtual platform. This is to ensure the continuation of our tradition of having outstanding leaders share their experiences to inspire, support, as well as motivate healthcare professionals in the Ministry of Health. Ladies and gentlemen, this is our second podium being held this year through a virtual platform, our new normal. I hope that it will benefit more MOH personnel this time. The theme chosen for today's podium is Transformational Leadership, Redesigning Healthcare to Current Nuances. Transformational leadership promotes valuable and good changes in followers in its ideal form, with the ultimate goal of grooming followers into future leaders. The COVID-19 pandemic has greatly impacted the work routines and lifestyle of the global as well as our local population. And transformational leadership can be the catalyst towards enhanced individual as well as organizational performance in healthcare and other sectors. Today we are indeed honored to have with us Yang Berusaha Puan Norliza Hashim, the CEO of Urbanice Malaysia, a Centre of Excellence for Urban Wellbeing and Sustainability, to share with us her experience in transformational leadership. She is also a member of the Leadership Council for Sustainable Development Solutions Network Malaysia, and her passion lies, among others, in promoting the sustainable agenda to provide innovative solutions that can contribute to a better built environment and quality of life in Malaysia. As we transition into the pandemic phase, it becomes ever more important to develop a sustainable living environment with collaboration from all regions and all sectors, including civil society, the public, and the private sectors. Ladies and gentlemen, the TGP Podium events have always been a valuable platform for TGP talents and all technical healthcare professionals in the Ministry of Health to learn something new from other leaders outside of the MOH. Thank you very much to our distinguished speaker today for sharing their leadership experience and knowledge with us. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank our Director General of Health, Yang Berbahagia Tan Sri Datuk Sri Dr. Nur Hisham bin Abdullah, for his continuous support in the TGP program activities. With that, I would like to welcome all our audiences who have joined us virtually from many levels of the MOH to this TGP podium. I am indeed confident that this sharing will be fruitful and gratifying. I wish you the best of luck on this important podium. I thank you all.
Thank you, Datuk Dr. Hisham Shah. In the past 2 years, the TGP Secretariat, with the support of the TGP Steering Committee, fellows and alumni have undertaken the challenge of TGP restructuring that led to the way forward of TGP. Today, we are honoured to have our Minister of Health, Yang Berhormat Khairi Jamaluddin, to officially launch the 3 publications on TGP, namely TGP Journey 2014-2020, TGP The Way Forward, and TGP Guidelines 3.0. We hope these books will give an insight on TGP Journey and its achievement over the years. Let us witness the video of the launch.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam keluarga Malaysia dan salam sehat sejahtera. Ladies and gentlemen, over the past 2 years, the COVID-19 pandemic has greatly tested the competence, commitment, and sense of responsibility of our healthcare professionals. Strong and decisive leadership has proven to be crucial for time-critical decision-making, especially during a time of crisis. The Talent Grooming Program for Healthcare Technical Professionals, or TGP, was envisioned by the highest level of the Ministry of Health in 2014. It was developed as a structured leadership development program to identify and optimize potential leaders within the ministry for the long-term succession planning of the organization. The TGP Journey 2014-2020 tells the story of this program in great detail. Centrally managed by the Institute for Health Management, or IHM, TGP has successfully produced 81 alumni as of 2021, many of whom have ascended to strategic leadership posts in their respective fields. With the global evolution in the healthcare sector and leadership development, a formal evaluation of TGP was conducted in 2020 with the aim of enhancing the competency framework and training structure of the program. This was to ensure the future direction of TGP that is aligned with the latest projection of leadership needs. Through the collaborative efforts of the TGP Secretariat, fellows, panels, and alumni, the final blueprint of TGP restructuring was completed and presented to the Director General of Health in December 2021. The TGP restructuring resulted in improvement strategies for various components, including organizational structure, as well as the process of selection, professional development, assessment, and supervision. All these are documented in TGP The Way Forward and incorporated in the TGP Guideline 3.0. In a post-pandemic era, it is imperative for healthcare leaders to continue navigating the organizations to be the stewards of growth for the health and well-being of our population. I hope that TGP will continue to play an integral role in nurturing future healthcare leaders. And with this, I hereby officially launch the TGP Journey 2014-2020, TGP The Way Forward, and the TGP Guideline 3.0. Thank you.
Thank you to our Yang Berhormat Khairi Jamaluddin. Ladies and gentlemen, today we are truly grateful to have Town Planner Sustainability Advocate Puan Norliza binti Hashim, Chief Executive Officer of Urbanice Malaysia, to be with us to share her wisdom and experiences. For those who are unfamiliar with our speaker today, Norliza Hashim is a registered town planner and professional technologist. She's the principal and founder of AJM Planning and Urban Design Group, Sdn Bhd, for the past 28 years. A part of being the CEO of Urbanice Malaysia, she has worked in 11 countries in developing various township master plans. At present, she is also the founding director of Malaysia Institute of Planners, Low Carbon Cities and Sustainability Centre since 2015, a committee member of Accreditation and Qualification Committee, and a member of Leadership Council of Sustainable Development Solutions Network Malaysia since 2019, and a fellow member of Institute Masa Depan Malaysia since 2020. Without further ado, please lend us a few minutes of your time and enjoy a short video montage of our speaker, Norliza Hashim. Let us now welcome Puan Norliza Hashim to deliver her speech.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Yang berbahagia Datuk Dr. Hisham Shah Muhammad Ibrahim, Deputy Director General of Health, Research and Technical Support. Yang berusaha Dr. Nurhayati Ibrahim, former Director of Institute for Health Management. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, salam sejahtera, and very warm greetings. First and foremost, I would really like to wish a very huge thank you to the Institute of Health Management, Ministry of Health Malaysia, for inviting me to this very significant TGP Inspirational Leadership Podium. It is really an honor to be here, and I'm truly humbled by the opportunity given to share my thoughts, views with the future leaders of our healthcare professionals. I'm here today to deliberate on the importance of health in sustainable cities, and I believe this topic is close to all of our hearts as it relates to us as individuals and also as professionals that cares for people's well-being as detrimental to our livelihoods. Health is an important part of our social dynamics, where lifestyle and patterns of consumption are influenced by our biophysical environment, where human health is affected and determined by the complex context of our social, economic, and environmental system. Hence, in today's context, where more than 56% of the world's population live in cities and urban areas, the effect on health by urbanization is becoming more prevalent, as high densities of population and rapid growth in urban development leads to environmental degradation, increasing risk factors affecting health, causing health inequalities that eventually led to social and economic disparities. Ladies and gentlemen, as we know, the model of sustainability normally looks at the balance between social, environmental, as well as economic. And in context of that social dimension, health can also be looked at and how we balance the effects on the three dimensions of sustainability. And this is where health actually contributes to equity. It's concerned with the broad social ecosystem and it's concerned for human health. Sustainable development actually contributes as it emphasizes upon future generations, natural ecosystems, and the health of other species that lives and share this earth with us. Now, I would like to bring the context of urbanization to Malaysia. When Malaysia actually in 1991 became an urban nation, when 50.4% of our urban population lives in either urban areas or cities that dominates our urban space. We cannot actually stop urbanization. It's actually non-stoppable. But most importantly is how we manage it in a more sustainable manner. So urbanization for Malaysia today is about 77.7% actually, and this is expected to go to 85% by 2040. And taking into consideration of that number, you almost have 24 million people that actually lives in urban areas today. And we have about 300 over urban centers in this whole country, big and small, and we have these cities are actually governed by local governments. Most importantly, why people actually shift to cities is because there is where the jobs are. And today, even in our Klang Valley area, Kuala Lumpur and Klang Valley, it contributes to almost 38% of our Malaysia's GDP. So that speaks for itself on why people migrate to cities. And when you talk about urbanization, why is this a global concern and also becoming a very important issue in Malaysia? It's because it puts a lot of pressure on our natural environment as well as actually on our built environment. Because the more people that continues to live in urban areas, we need to actually provide the space for these people, be it housing, be it parks, be it amenities, be it even infrastructure and public transportation. So cities are actually very limited. Not only that, they are very stressed actually due to this demand to support such kind of growth. So today we have all kinds of conflicts that that has affected all of us. We have the climate crisis. We have the COVID crisis. Which we are still going through today, and in some places we're even having war crisis. This affects urbanization, people mobility in many ways, and when we talk about moving forward, how do we make sure that sustainability is still being managed in the best way possible? In context to climate crisis, we know that, as more density happens in urban areas, the cities actually get warmer. We call it the urban heat island. So when cities get warmer, it affects a lot of other things. And one of the major things that you are observing today is flash floods. Suddenly you're having storms. So that's no longer monsoon actually. What you're going through today is a real real case of climate change happening all over Malaysia. In Kuala Lumpur, almost every month we have the situation, and in Johor and in parts of Malaysia which are not flood-prone areas suddenly are flooding. So these are because of that phenomena. As heat goes up, they are unable to also escape because there are many ozone layer of gases up there, and that's why it comes up hitting our Earth's surfaces. And in fact, during COVID, it actually proves this theory, because when people were locked down, suddenly the city centre of Kuala Lumpur were actually much, much cooler. But what was warm is actually the housing areas, because we were all locked down, So this is a situation where a lot of mapping that were done by a lot of institutions in the country showed, how urban heat island has actually changed its profile during the lockdown. Now, one of the other things that most developing countries are also going through is actually this social structural change. For Malaysia, one of the main things is that our growth rate have actually slowed down tremendously. In fact, for 2020 to 2021, we only had a 0.2% annual growth in population. That means from 32.6 million, we only have 32.7 million in 2021, And it used to be 1.8% in 2010, and even at a figure of 2.5% prior to that, in the year 2000, or prior even before that. So we are seeing this growth rate is slowing down, and not only that, we also see household size decreasing. In the past, when we want to do projection, especially people in the built environment, we always project like 4.5 people living in a house. But today, actually, we only have 4.03 people living in a house, and this is expected to go even further to almost 3.8 in 2040. In fact, in some parts of Kuala Lumpur, household size is almost just 2. So this is something again for us to rethink about moving forward. How do we address this social structural change that is happening in our country? On top of that, we also have disparities between the top level T20 as well as the B40, especially in terms of income level, where T20 on average is about 13,000 and the B40 on average is about 3,000. So this disparity again, when people are put in this situation, you have a lot of people living in urban areas, very, very stressed actually. So for them, affordability means maybe living further away, and this means longer traveling time. And that also means, a lot of less productivity in terms of their daily hours, and that will generally also affect health in the whole cycle of well-being of a person. So with pandemic, it was very challenging for Malaysia. In fact, it's challenging for everyone in all parts of the world. But what was a health crisis actually became a social crisis and even an economic crisis. And I think today I was talking to a lot of friends, some are still struggling to recover from the economic crisis that we went through. Our GDP contraction is slowly improving, of course, in the 2021. But the unemployment rate, I think, is something that we need to deal with, which was about 4.1%, where almost 1 million people lost their jobs. A lot of small, medium enterprises also winded up. And a lot of self-employed people just do not have jobs, during that time. So that's why you see a lot of people moving into logistics, becoming Grab drivers. When we had many Grab drivers then, but now some of them have actually gone back to work. And we are also seeing a decrease in some of this pattern. So this, all this is actually very, very concerning, because when we talk about livability, when we talk about sustainability, we always have to relate to the people itself, the people that's actually living in the city. So this is where the whole opportunity to actually create change become very, very important. And how do we move forward? Having all these crises in mind, how can we move towards something which is more inclusive, more green, more healthy? And I think that's what a lot of countries have actually taken this advantage to actually transform their cities, because they know that cities are actually at the front line. Cities are actually the first to collapse during the pandemic. And this is where, moving forward, how do we build a more resilient city, but also a more resilient community that actually can manage to overcome some of these challenges. So this is where, in the line of work that I do, where I'm an urban planner, and we look at how these policies should be rethink in the long run, and what is this new paradigm that we need to put in place so that moving forward, we are not only able to anticipate this kind of issues, but also to actually build back better or bounce back stronger. And so I guess that's where, reshaping the cities, remodeling and thinking out of the box become very important. So very close to the work that we do currently is actually how to align a lot of the work, a lot of the policies that we have to the Sustainable Development Goals, where the Sustainable Development Goals provide that framework and targets, that could actually assist towns, countries, and nations to actually re-look at their current policies. So this is where healthy and sustainable communities is actually one of the important pillars of our agenda, where in SDG 11, we talk about sustainable cities and communities. And definitely health is a major foundation to sustain cities and communities over the long period of time. So we are looking at how quality of life becomes very important in the future. Also healthy environment, built environment, how do we create a very healthy lifestyle for all our people? And of course, strong public health capacity, which is what is very, very important as well to support whatever situation that we might face in the future. This actually, if we looked at it in a very strong manner, it will help us actually in overcoming our economy, our local economy, and also lead to a society which is more vibrant, more just and more equal, and a built environment as well as a natural environment which is more more flourishing, more healthy, and that supports this ever-changing requirement that communities require. So what we are also encouraging currently is that for cities to actually prepare their sustainable roadmap into the future. And as we recall, there are 17 goals, and the third goal is good health and well-being, which is very related to the healthcare professionals that I'm addressing today. But how the SDG goals work is that they are very interrelated, they are very universal, and they are very inclusive in nature. So we cannot just look at each of these goals in isolation. That means to say, the role of health, for example, can also be a major contributor to poverty. Because poverty is not just about income, because SDG 1 is about no poverty. And a lot of people, when we talk about poverty, they only relate to income level. But actually, the goal is very multidimensional in nature. And one of the things that it also says is that, how accessible are we to amenities and facilities? And one of it, of course, is healthcare facilities. So if you do, a lot of times we are looking at beds to people, doctors to people, but being accessible means able to go there easily, reachable, and this is where in some cities, how do you make some of these services much more accessible to local communities? So this is where I think understanding how moving forward, each of how healthcare can actually relate to sustainability. So these dimensions can actually be looked at a much larger context, and not just in terms of looking at diseases, looking at mortality, looking at the state of health, but also looking at the built environment that actually can support some of these goals and targets. So I think this is where relating health to sustainable cities and communities become very crucial. Because when you look at the SDG 11, it talks about making that provision for a healthy city, like green and public spaces, better linkages, even things like safety, feeling safe in an urban environment actually help in our well-being. Some people are so stressed living alone, they are afraid, and being afraid also can actually be very concerning for some people, especially the aging population. So that is why it's very important to link health and urban sustainability, where we are not only looking at local built and natural environment, but we are also linking at the bigger overarching health ecosystem, or rather the planetary health ecosystem. That means to say we must ensure that whatever we build, whatever development that we do, we are not endangering our natural ecosystem, especially at the more global and wider area, because once these are affected, that's where climate change actually happens, and climate change can be a big deterring factor concern to them. Our friends in Bhutan, where the ice melting, and they have to deal with something which was never before, because they are always having ice and snow all around them. So when natural ecosystems are affected, actually our natural urban environment is also affected. And I think that is what we are going through today. And that's why a lot of cities now are relooking, the importance of how we really build within the capacity that we have. And at the same time, making sure that we don't go beyond the planetary boundaries, that we must respect and keep in a good way that can support the livelihood of people. So there are many cities that are doing a lot of different kind of solutions, and they all have this objective of making cities healthier, and how do they prevent disasters in the future. So I think this is something a lot of cities are looking at, reducing carbon emission, for example, and reducing carbon emission is actually everyone's role, individually, organizations, everyone actually. It doesn't mean that when you talk about carbon, it's just cars and logistics, but we are consuming a lot of carbon through our electricity, through a lot of irresponsible consumptions that might be actually relatable to carbon emissions in the process of providing us those services. So this is where livability and from livability to health and wellness becomes very important, and the role of the cities is actually shouldn't be taken for granted. As we walk every day in the city, we should be mindful on how we can actually improve the current condition in our cities, so that we don't endanger what might cross the planetary boundaries that we have. So one of the other things which I want to quickly touch base, which is very close to what I feel, which is actually our age profile of our people. Malaysia is actually moving into an aging society very, very soon. We are now about 7%, and by 2040, we are going to be going up to 14.5%. And then by 2056, the projection shows that we are going to be a super age society, So I'm just thinking that we passed the 2020, we haven't done much, 2040 is just like, less than 17 years to go. But besides healthcare, is our urban environment ready to support aging society? Our roads, our pavement, our traffic lights, even the button to cross the roads, because we will have different kind of challenges as we age. We maybe our eyes don't do so well. Our legs fail us sometimes. So we need a different built environment that actually can support the kind of society that's going to be living in Malaysia in the next 15 years onwards. So this is where I think by 2050, they say 1 in every 6% person will be 65 years old. Okay, so I think that's something for us to think about. And because what's important moving forward from today is actually how we future-proof our built environment. And I think this goes all the way across the board, from housing, how do we make our housing? Because we can't keep on moving, right? We invest in a house most of the time. That's where we grow our children and we age in the same house. So how do we make our house very relevant as we age? I actually had to renovate my house when my mother moved in, and I think these are things which is very, very costly. So these are things that I think socially responsible city is actually very relatable to the well-being of the community. And this means, how do we keep houses to be more affordable? How do we make them communities more accessible? And how can they have the same equal level of service no matter who they are and where they live in the city? It doesn't matter if they are a B40 or a high income person, but they enjoy the same level of quality of services in the city. I think that's where moving forward, that that socially responsible cities needs to come into our dimension. And at the same time, we need more nature-based solutions. This will help us in overcoming a lot of the climate change issues that we are going through today. So if we can plant more trees, have more green buildings, have more vertical greens in our city, maybe we can reduce the air pollution and have better air quality, which is a main contributor to many respiratory illness. So these are things which maybe they have, they are actually simple solutions, but they just need to be consistent. So we always talk about planting a tree, 1 million tree. We hear these numbers, but we also chop them just as fast. So I think this is where making sure that nature stays, nature is accessible, parks are accessible, and I think that will help. And I think in the last 1 week, there's a lot of discussion about a rising in food costs. And there's a report saying that the B40 can't afford to buy some of the cost of meals in markets today. So yeah, we talk about food security for some time. In fact, we spoke about this quite heavily during the lockdown. But I think this is one discussion that needs to prolong, not only food security, but nutrition, good nutrition. I mean, this is where that, awareness on health and what they should eat. It's not about the volume that they eat, but the quality that they eat becomes very important. And I think moving forward, we want our city, how do our people become healthy? And one of the easiest way to remain healthy is actually to walk. And this is where making our city more walkable becomes very, very important. But walkable is not just about getting up and walking, it's actually having the whole built environment enabling you to walk safely, continuously, and in fact, also making sure that people who are elder, children, disabled can actually share the same streets with you. So it needs a whole paradigm shift together. Not only the people that is planning for it, but individuals who are driving, for them to understand that this is a shared street, they need to slow down. There are more people on bicycles or on wheelchairs, So how do we change that? We are already in 2022, 2020, 2030, we are already probably 11 or 12%, because 2040 we're going to be 14%. But yet we are far from some of these responses to make our built environment better. So I think, there's a lot of work that needs to be done collectively by cities, in making sure that cities are safer, cities are more secure, and the role of individuals become very important. We A lot of people, when they design their homes so that they are very exclusive, but they need to understand they live in a neighborhoods. If they could care for their neighbors by just watching, by keeping an eye, those will also help. So that you don't need to depend to gated community, you don't have to depend on the police or rukun tetangga, which is very expensive, Once you are a pensioner, those small amounts of 50 ringgit, 100 ringgit just becomes more and more expensive to actually cope with urban living. So we need to change the whole paradigm actually, not only on how we design, but how we adapt to this new environment in the future. And especially when we're talking about walkability, different age groups walk different speed. A young child, an elder person, an active person, a 20-year-old, all of us have different speed. But yet, we place our amenities the same, as if people are reaching or able to reach these places at the same, level playing field. But it is not so actually, You walk slower when you're aging. So maybe surau should be nearer, and tadika and surau maybe can be together, something like that, But the more active people, like schools, they can walk further, a little bit further, depending on the type of school. So simple things like this actually can make a lot of difference in our community so that we become more accessible as a city. And as we move on into this new era, we can always use technology to enhance how we are designing our built environment. One of the things which are very of interest to me is how Singapore actually have created this dementia go-to point. Because I live in an old age community in Petaling Jaya. Every other few months, we always have a notification that someone is missing. So, my mother is also dementia, but I'm lucky because she doesn't want to leave the house. But there are a lot of people who are still active and they forget. And this is where this dementia go-to point. And in Germany, they know exactly where these dementia people actually live in certain communities. And that helps actually for other people to be on the lookout. Because if not, we'll be relying on photos. We'll be relying on extra pair of eyes, which are hopefully more responsible to assist these families. So these are, again, small things, but can mean a lot. And then there are a lot of concepts that, that we can start to introduce. How do we create a city which is relevant from 8 to 80? That means for a child to an old person, because their needs are the same. And this is where I think, it's about everything. It's about the whole ecosystem that needs to come into place. And at the end of the day, we need to understand that everyone have the rights to the city. We all have the rights to different parts of the city. At the end of the day, when we go home, we are just an individual. We go to the market, we do our chores, we become that normal human being, And that's where we realize that how difficult it is to actually, to reach some of these facilities that's supposed to be in our city. So these dimensions become very important. How do we create mobility maps in the city? So that, the city of Melbourne actually have a map that shows where are the handicap toilets. I think that's fantastic, because when I wanted to bring my mother, I had to check whether the mall can fit a wheelchair, and most malls don't. And it is very difficult actually to bring elderly people or even disabled people around in our city here in Malaysia. So I think this is our role, a collective role, because we don't know when this opportunity comes to all of us, as medical practitioners or even me as a town planner. This opportunity comes to us at different points of time. But if we are able to provide our view, we are able to understand this issue in a more contextual manner or a larger overarching manner, I think we can help improve our living environment. Because I think at the end of the day, when we talk about livability, it's about making sure that we are able to live in a society. We are making sure that we are able to live comfortably in an area, and how do we are able to communicate more freely, and and at the end of the day, how healthy we are, you know. So this is where I think more awareness is needed, and in future, moving forward, there's a lot of discussion on how we can make our cities more green, more inclusive, how we can have this, governance system and financing system which are also aligned to these new needs in the future, because with more people living in cities, by right, we should also be spending a lot more in cities, But because our country is very, very wide, we do have to balance the financing of how we manage our countries. But then again, how do different agencies, different ministries can actually work together to co-share some of the services, the sites, the building, for example, because we lack land, we lack resources, and maybe in the long term, we might even lack capacity to actually manage all this. So moving forward, we can see European countries which have actually gone through that cycle. I think this is something for us to learn on how to actually be more sustainable moving into the future. So I guess my last message is actually more towards how we really bring social resilience core to the city's sustainability. And when we talk about social resilience, of course, it's involving everyone in the process, and really, really involving people in the process. How many times have we designed a hospital and get everyone to be involved? How do we get community to be part of it? Because at the end of the day, whatever we build is for society, and that's where this social resilience become very important. Whether or not it's not just about people, social resilience, but it's also the infrastructure to support people needs to be resilient in our journey towards sustainability. So this is where sharing data, sharing resources becomes very, very crucial. And at the end of the day, transforming our cities to become more healthy, I think is a big step towards sustainability, because it's that big ingredient that brings everyone together. So let's hope moving forward for Malaysia, that's where we are going. And I think I'm really, really very thankful to have this opportunity to speak to everyone. And I really hope that, moving forward, there's a lot more collaboration between professionals to actually address some of these issues. So thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Norliza Hashim, for sharing with us your tremendous experience, wisdom, and knowledge. Dear participants, by now, we are very sure that you have many questions in your mind. Please send us your burning questions through the QR code provided. Please register your attendance by scanning the QR code provided. The QR code will also be displayed at the end of our podium after the Q&A session. Now, I would like to invite Yang Berbahagia, Datuk Dr. Hisham Shah, and our guest of honor, Puan Norliza Hashim, to join with our moderator for our question and answer session. The session will be moderated by our talent, Dr. Maheshwar Balan. Dr. Maheshwar, the stage is now yours.
Hello, good afternoon, and a warm welcome to all the leaders of today and tomorrow. Cohort 9 of the Talent Grooming Program wish to extend our deepest gratitude to you for taking the effort and time to be a part of the second Inspirational Leadership Podium for this year entitled Transformational Leadership, Redesigning Healthcare to Current Nuances. I'm Dr. Maheshwar, your moderator for the Q&A session this afternoon. We have with me two field experts, our wonderful speaker, Puan Norliza Hashim, CEO of Urbanice, Malaysia, Dr. Hisham Shah, Muhammad Ibrahim, our former Deputy Director General of Health, Research and Technical Support. Dear viewers, before we start, I would like to remind our viewers on YouTube, please feel free to put forth your questions by scanning the QR code provided. Kindly like, subscribe and share, like, subscribe and share, like, subscribe and share with your friends. Puan, how are you both doing this afternoon?
Oh yeah, I'm good. Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you.
Well, I guess with any field of work requiring interaction between human beings, be it your superiors, colleagues, and subordinates, for any organization to achieve and or meet a set number of goals, binding a steering group of people into achieving the task is utmost pivotal. This requires skills, be it professionally or personally, and these skills are usually termed as leadership skills. So based on your experience, what do you think, Puan Norliza, that is essential that a leader should have in order to get his people to come along with the organization and achieve the set amount of goals?
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Mahesh. I think for an organization to move together successfully, I think one of the most important thing is the shared vision. You know, how you share your aspiration, your thoughts with your people. I think when the organization can move in the same direction, that's already one big move forward. But making that happen requires you to actually not only be the leader that sets the direction, but also a leader that actually should listen to your people. Because in any organization, it's not just about the leader, it's actually about the people. You know, and in today's context, that has become more and more important. Especially in an organization which I lead, which is, we deal with community. And the community actually is very diversified. So you need to have a team that actually, share that your thoughts as a leader, but also understand the importance of the stakeholders that they are also communicating with. So I think for me, how you share your way forward, your vision, your thoughts, and how you synchronize that with the people that you work with, I think that becomes very important.
Thank you. That's very well said. Wow.
Thank you.
The next question will be to our Dato. How do you think we can tackle generation gap as a leader? And what type of leadership style do you think is most relevant today?
Thanks, Mahesh. Before we talk about generational leadership, I think probably, can I just add on to what Puan Norliza has said? I think shared vision is something that you need to really emphasize on, because if you have a shared vision, then I think all of our people would be aligned to what are the goals that we need to arrive at. Yeah, so that's very important. And when you say about generation, in any organization, you would find different levels of understanding, different age and different outlook. Yeah, so it also falls back to the shared vision. You need to be very clear about that. If you could convince the various generation to fall in line to that shared vision, then more likely than not, you're going to be able to steer everyone towards that same goal. So that's something that we need to be very clear about. So leadership would be, be about being able to bridge all of these generational gaps, so to speak, and you would need to understand where they're coming from. Take, for instance, the pandemic, the pandemic that we just went through, we're still going through, and we are in the transition phase. Well, you see the young ones are quite adept to, the needs of digital. And then after that, you are also quite adept to change, so to speak. But the older generation, maybe they are a bit not less so attuned to that. Yeah. So you have this different skill set, different mindset. But if you can bring them together and then understand what are their needs, then I think you have a better chance of bringing everybody together towards that same goal. So that's the role of the leader, to understand, empathize, and put forward a common goal for everybody to come together.
Thank you, Dato. I truly agree with that. The next question is to Juan. In your opinion, how similar or different are leaders in the local context when compared internationally? How can we improve, and how can we be more relevant?
Well, I'm not sure whether there's a difference between global leaders or local leaders, because I think every leader has their own, they are a leader for a reason, either they're leading a community, or they're leading a cause, or they're leading, the purpose are different for every leader, So that, I think, differentiates the kind of leader you are, because if you have a cause and you're fighting for a very strong cause, whether you're a global or local leader, your context is very important. That means to say that, if I'm championing sustainability, for example, and I want to do that in Malaysia, and of course my context needs to be correct, we have to be grounded to the issues I have here, But we learn from each other, all the leaders, I believe, whether we are local or global, and that's where discussions, with other leaders are also very important, because we are also, sometimes we need to also challenge our own thoughts, or we want others to challenge our views, and I guess that's where the global leaders, maybe because their issues have been there longer than us, we are able to actually learn better, and they are able to share with us on some of the strategies that they have tried, and if they are more successful than us, and by the end of the day, every leader, I think, need to go back to the context of where they are, championing their cause, and you cannot just apply what you learn from abroad totally, and that's why we always talk about how do we localize those solutions that you are learning. So I believe that of course there are many leaders which are they are very, very experienced because they've gone, and in a lot of global countries you find that their history, especially in the work that I do, their history in terms of urbanization is much, much more longer than us. We've gone through urbanization maybe in the last 50 years, they've maybe gone through 100 years. I think that puts us at different levels. But Asia provides a different challenge altogether to this world, and suddenly people also want to understand from Asian leaders and ASEAN leaders, because the kind of challenges that we are bringing is very different,
exactly.
And they want to hear what we have to say, because as the world evolves, some of these issues are coming back, and that's where I think whether you're a local or you're a global leader, the ability to actually open up and and discuss and also exchange ideas, willing to listen, I think that's very important, so that we are not feeling that we've done it all, we know it all kind of a thing, because I don't think there's a solution that fits everywhere and anywhere lah. Yeah.
No perfect solution to anything.
No, I don't think so.
No one size fits all, yeah?
No one size fits all. That's all. Exactly. Yeah.
Right. So the next question will be to our Dato. So how has your role model been instrumental to your success personally and professionally? Is there a role model that you look up to, Dato?
Well, we've got a lot of role models, along the way. I'm sure Puan Norliza, you also would have role model. When you're young, your hero will be your dad, your bapa, and sebagainya, kan? And then, as you go along, you have to, focus on somebody that you thought is successful, and you follow that. So that will be a role model to you. But to me, a role model for us to be a good leader, like what Puan Norliza says, you learn from others. So you got to read. I think the culture of learning from the past, the civilization of days gone by, reading what makes some civilization successful, and vice versa. I mean, what makes some civilization fall into the abyss. So you can learn a lot of lessons from that, and then you can learn from a lot of leaders from days gone by, and contemporary leaders are also there for you to make as role models. So if you can not limit yourself just to someone that you can see, but go beyond that. Learn from others, and then learn what they did right. But more important, learn what they did wrong, so that you don't make the same mistakes. And context is also very important. Rightly pointed out, by Puan Norliza. The West wouldn't understand what's unique in the local scenario. So only the local people would know the local terrain, be it geographical or time, culture. So that's other dimensions that only the local people would know. Only Dr. Mahesh would know Penang more than me, because I haven't been to Penang. So I think those are the kind of things that a leader must be able to do, and understand that and use that knowledge for them to bring up the best in the people or the organization.
Truly, that's very, very true. It's very important to keep an open mind.
Exactly.
We have a question from a lady.
Okay.
As a female leader in a male-dominated field, what would you say is your biggest challenge in your career, and how did you manage to overcome it?
Yeah, I mean, born in the time zone that I did, I think it was slightly challenging for a woman. And I think, at that time, for especially a professional, you trying to be a professional in the field, in our field, development, urban development, it was quite challenging because it's a man's world at that time, So and first when you enter the job market, one, you're very junior, and you're a mother, So when you're a mother, I think for me, it started as a challenge because, you had to juggle. And every time is about prioritizing, how to prioritize your time between family, work. Because on one hand, family is always the first, but on the other hand, you understand that the job is also important because it's not only feeding your family, but it's also something for the future for yourself, So I think that was my first challenge as a mother, to juggle the time, but it teach me to how to prioritize lah. And I think that I have actually 7 children, and I've been juggling that all my entire life. But I made it simple, in a sense that I made it wholesome. Job, mother, everything, kids, they're part of it's a package.
Okay. Salute you.
Sometimes I bring them to my, my job, my site visits, hire a babysitter to care for them when you're running around. So I think when you put them all in one, it's not so bad. You're not like having to divide your time so much.
And you enjoy doing it.
Yeah, I enjoy, and your children understand you better, and they understand what you're doing. But it was not easy in the beginning, juggling it, especially when they were young. But I think over time you find that balance lah. And I guess the second challenge is, of course, as a professional, trying to make that mark as a woman, and and trying to say that don't treat me because I'm a woman. I don't want a special treatment.
Right.
I want to be recognized for my work as a professional. Gender should be the second thing that you should be considering when you're considering me, you know.
Right.
And I think that made you even want to push yourself to be in a way more knowledgeable, not so much as trying to prove yourself, but also to be equal or even better in that sense, you know. And I think the only way to do that is to be, again, you know, to prepare yourself mentally with a lot of knowledge, and like Datuk say, you know, read a lot, do a lot more, you know. But I do find that I have to work twice harder, you know, put more time to eat more than the man did in those days, lah.
Yeah.
But now it's no longer as challenging, you know.
Yeah.
I don't find intimidated by, I mean, most of the time my fellow colleagues or meeting members are more men than women, but I don't find it a problem anymore, you know. So,
It's all about girl power now. Everyone is shifting with that.
I think it's not so much about asking for your rights, you know. It's more about asking for just that, you know, that ability to be able to have the same opportunity. We don't want that special treatment. We just want the same opportunity. Yeah. I think that's the, I mean, if there is a challenge, I would say those are the early struggles lah. But again, once you stand for yourself, kan, Datuk, for what you are, I think it gets easier over time. Yeah.
Your action speaks louder than words.
Alright, this is the next question to you, Pam, again. What are your views or ideas of redesigning healthcare, especially taking into consideration about urbanization and its effects? What aspects do you think needs more attention?
That's for me or what
Urban planning. That's your forte.
Oh yeah, I mean, I spoke a lot about that in the presentation, you know, because for me, when we talk about urbanization, you know, the whole agenda on sustainable urbanization is first and foremost is how to make the livelihood of people better, you know, and this is all about healthcare is one of it, you know, or healthy living is utmost in terms of quality living, you know. If your people is happy, they need to be healthy, you know.
And vice versa.
And vice versa, kan, Datuk. So I believe that it's not just health should be about everything, you know. It's very linked to livability, and it's not just about the facilities, you know. It's also about the environment, and it's all about, you know, having the access to all these facilities that will give you a better life. As simple as having access to parks, for example, you know, green areas, you know, and we used to have that in the old days, kampongs and you know, or clean air, and in some cities they even put the quality of air today is how much, you know, the air index. We don't share those information, you know, and so I think that, you know, healthcare, healthy living is everything. And a person who's healthy is productive, and a productive person is a productive society, is a productive economy, and the country benefits, you know? So it goes. I think if we could put more attention to health, and not just the infrastructure part, but also connect it to living in every aspect of living, you know, I think then we will be looking at how do we design our homes, design our neighborhoods, you know, how do we design even our walkway, you know, to allow us to continue to live healthily for our entire life, which is like, you know, some people, if they live long, you know, they would need those facilities to enable them to live healthily. So I think, and even like diabetes kind of talk, kan. I mean, I had that small lecture with some students on that issue. And I mean, it's all about lifestyle, and lifestyle is really, you can change that lifestyle if you create an enabling environment that could change that person's lifestyle, make them walk more, for example. But we don't. We making people drive more, not walk more. So I think it's a vicious cycle, I think, you know.
True. This is with regards to now that we have, the surge in the number of elderly patients. So now we have a question here. What is your opinion for similar standardized home buildings nowadays in helping out demented patients mobilize better?
Yeah, I think that's top of my personal list lah. I think we need to have a age-proof home. I think in the past, it's an evolution for Malaysia. Right? We never thought that when we were fast growing, we just wanted people to have roof over their head. We don't want people to be living in squatters or in not low quality homes. We wanted everyone to have access to good quality and affordable home. But over time, we also understand that we are having more aging population, and as people age, dementia is on the rise. It's not well. Statistics are not well provided locally. But I think we should not be dependent on numbers, because it's a natural progression that we will all age. And if we are going to age like the statistics say, 2040, we're going to be like 14 to 15%, that only leaves us about 20 years to fix everything. So we still need to fix our homes, and I think that's the first start. And if we make our home age-proof, that means to say it's good for the baby, it's good for the mom, it's good for your grandma, then it doesn't matter. You can continue to live in that home. So it's not very difficult. It's about the right size of the door, the right size of the floor levels, the right color for the colorblind, the right texture on the floor so that you don't slip. So it's just about making small changes, which maybe the cost is almost the same. But we are not conscious of this, and because we are not conscious, we are not making these changes. In door size, I think a normal door standard size will not fit a good size of a wheelchair. And these are simple things. And an elderly person who shuffles, you need that floor which is almost same level. So these are, I would say, the same thing if you have a baby. You're very careful when you have a baby in the house, You start buying all kind of fixtures, to avoid them falling, knocking on the tables. Childproof. So make it age-proof.
Exactly.
Because we are all going in that direction. Doesn't mean that, you have to be dementia, then you fix things up, because I think by then it's too late.
Too late.
It's too late.
Costly.
It's costly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Do it right the first time.
Do it right first time. Buy a house. Be conscious about what you're buying. Understand it. Tiles in bathroom should be non-slippery. So those are simple things. But we don't. We actually take things for granted. We look at the color and say, wow, it's nice. We want the flashy marbles, or wow, this looks good. But it's aesthetic. It's not functional. And I think for starters, we just need to understand it. And once we understand it, I think to be conscious on what we want in our homes.
That's with regards to elderly population. We do also have a rise in mental health issues. Right. Also. So the next question is, how do you think?
That should be for Dato'. He's the doctor here.
Oh, Dato', maybe you can. What do you think is important in helping curb mental health issues? How can a leader help?
Locally,
locally.
From the town planning point of view?
From Dr.
Well, I think mental health is so important because, from the mind, you can get sick, I think that's where, you get a lot of stress. That's why a lot of people get NCD, premature death, because the mind is not healthy. When the mind is not healthy, the soul is also not healthy in a sense, So the mind and soul plays a very important role towards your physical health. So that's where town planning comes in. Meaning that you need to plan the environment to make it such that it is not toxic. It is conducive for the mind and for the soul, as well as the physical. Well, it's common sense in a sense, but to translate that into something practical, at many levels, at the individual level, at the community level, at the state level, at the national level, at the international level, you have the concept, you have the technology, but to implement that. So that is something that, we got to come together, because it is not just the role of the town planning. It's got to, a lot of people that has got a say in how we live our lives, individual, family, communities, they got to come together saying that, living healthily in an environment which is conducive to the mind, heart and soul and physical well-being is important. So that's why sometimes you go to the West, who are, skyscrapers, reaching for the skies one after the other, but you got very sick people within that jungle, concrete jungle. On the other extreme, you have this, just barely clothed people in the jungle, but very happy in a sense. But of course, you're not going to go there. There must be some balance whereby you use technology, and then you also have some, the niceties in life. You got to have some balance, but somehow or rather we have lost the way. So this is where we need to come back, and leadership like Puan Norliza that can show us some direction is so important.
Yeah, I just want to add, it's like, Dato is correct, and I agree with him totally. Mental illness is, during COVID, we find that a lot of more cases, right?
Yes, yeah.
People were, either very ill mentally, and then we get people who were suicidal cases. And loneliness issue. There was even a group of people who set up a loneliness club.
Yeah.
So the fact that the club is being formed, it shows the seriousness of this issue. I think mental illness is something that should be avoided, especially in Malaysian society, because we are known to be very family oriented. But somehow or other that have sort of come up over the last years, and I think it's also because of the urbanization rate. People are working more. People are trying very hard to make ends meet. Some people have 2 jobs in a day, and I think this stress in life, is something that we need to manage. So it's not just about the built environment anymore. It's also about how society, can, even the economy of the country could also ensure that there's more opportunities for everyone. And at the same time, if how can society help one another, and that's going back to the family system, and the community, how can the community become a family system, and I think this is missing in a lot of our communities in urban areas. So in the work that we do, we are trying very hard now to create social spaces. We call that, community hubs. Especially in very high-rise development area, we find that societies are very detached from one another. So we built this social space in very high dense development area, and we generally give this space to the community themselves, empower them to actually just manage the place, the program, and so far in the places that we have built these social spaces, we find that communities are coming together more. I think that societal support system will at least stop them from going into something which is not.
I believe so.
Hopefully,
crucial.
I mean, some of them have their relatives in kampong, so we need another system in the city, to actually replicate that family system which is they are missing in their kampongs, and I think that's where urban living is very challenging, and we are still not as bad like in some countries, but it should not happen because we are Malaysian, we are known for our high value in family. So that's something that I think is everybody's role, I would say.
Great. We have now, I think we've got a very young mother. She's concerned about, she's put here, would you share what other countries could do in terms of helping children under 5 years old who have poor, healthy living conditions, and they come from low-income families?
Right. Well, I think that many countries are also, especially very urban countries, are all struggling with this issue of childcare. And again, just like elder care, I also think that childcare in Malaysia is getting very expensive. And I don't know why it has come to that point, but I find that early childcare and even early education have become so expensive that a lot of parents in urban areas now are really desperate to actually either, some of them, as you can see in a lot of pictures, bringing their children to work with them. So we do. I'm not to say that we don't have a strong social service kind of a society, but it's getting less and less where you can drop your child at your neighbor's home. I remember when I used to be having 1 or 2 children, we have that system where we have elderly neighbors who are willing to actually
Look after
for a few hours. Maybe you just want to go to the market, or you just want to to do some errands, but you have a neighbor that can help you to do that. And I used to have those neighbors, when I first started to have the young children, but now I think that kind of system tak ada dah. It's already gone, and that is why younger parents are, they're very stressed, and especially having younger children. I think in other countries, family sizes are very small, Second, they do have that system where you can either they have that nanny system, or they can drop off a child in a place, that can help childcare center just for a few hours, so we don't have that much facility. And that's where I think it has become very difficult. But for the government offices in Putrajaya, I think they're doing well. They have all these
nurseries.
I think Taska nurseries, cribs even, I think it helps a lot. One is very affordable, second, it's also of high quality, and third, the comfort level of knowing that your child is safe. So I don't know, different countries actually solve it differently, because it has to do also with culture. And how you want your child to be taken care, So in some society, it's okay. In some society, it's not okay to just leave your child, So I think it's also societal. I can't really recall of a good, answering to the question of a good country that has a system like that. But I know my cousin, she is living in Melbourne, and she is a child carer. But for her to be a child carer, she actually go through a process of application, interview, and her house has to be. They came to the house to see. They interviewed her husband to understand, and then when she is approved, then she can be a child carer. So I'm not sure whether that's the system that we can adopt, because I think now we are very afraid to trust people to take care of our children.
Absolutely.
So these are maybe some of the things that we can learn from.
That's great. Dato', the next question will be to you. What would be your best advice for an individual working in a team to get things done?
Individuals?
To get things done.
Working in a team? To get things done? Well, if you look at, team leadership, I don't believe that the leader is the be-all and end-all in a sense. Every single member of the team is as responsible as the leader. That's one thing, collective leadership is something that you need to aspire to develop in our people. So that's one thing that you guys in the TGP must be very aware of. The other thing that is also important is the leader must gain the trust of the other team members, and trust is gained. Respect is gained by your own doing. If that leader brings to the table, credible experience, and if you are there on merit, so chances are the rest of the group, the rest of the team members would be following you. And you got to walk the talk.
Yes.
If you guys are going to go back to be leaders in your organization, in this case, if it is in Ministry of Health, you better be the best that you could ever be. You walk the talk, and then you do your homework, and then you should be above, ahead of the curve, in a sense. If you do that, and then if they sense the sincerity and then your conviction to achieve that goal, and I think that the rest of the team members would fall in.
Yes.
And it's easier for you to get work done collectively. The leader shouldn't go on their own, in a sense, because leaving the rest behind. Because sometimes the fault in a lot of these leaders, they work themselves to death, and then the rest of the group are just going to be falling behind. But going forward, demonstrating that this is what to do is important. But getting the rest of the team members to share in your vision is also important. So that is both. It goes both ways, in a sense. But the leader is the one that must show the example.
Yeah.
Would that be okay, Mahesh?
Yes, thank you, Dr. I take that as a word of advice to myself, for the rest of us who are watching. I think we have one last question, Puan, to you. Which countries would you say are good models that we can aspire to emulate when designing our cities? Any particular country based on your experience?
Right. Well, I mean, I have a lot of favorite cities. I always tell people that, if you feel comfortable, once you go to a city, you feel comfortable and you feel that you can retire in the city, then that city is a good city to live.
That's your benchmark, yeah?
That's my benchmark.
Okay.
And I think good cities are when the city is actually thinking about the people, more people-centric,
Right.
Like, for example, how it's very efficient. When it's efficient, it thinks about the service for the people. For example, even if you're taking a train, from train you want to get on the bus, and then from the bus you maybe want to rent a bicycle, A good city is when all that is right in front of your eyes.
Seamless.
Seamless.
Yes.
But some cities, some of it as our own cities, we got to look for those, we got to wait for our interchange bus, So it's as simple as that, making it seamless, because that extra 5 minute or 2 minute that you save, because it's so seamless, saves you a lot of time.
Yeah.
So it makes you more efficient. So in some cities when you live, you feel that, hey, I can get things done a lot more. In one day, you're so productive, you're so efficient. You have time to go shopping, you have time to actually walk, in the evening. I think that's when the city really works for me. So I have that experience in a lot of cities actually that I visited. So they're not like perfect in all ways, Like in Vienna, they are super efficient with public transport, and that's why they always get that extra mark as the most livable city. And I also like Melbourne because they managed to bring people to live in the cities, and when they decided to make people live in the city, they made the city livable. They made the city people friendly, more parks in the city. You can just walk. Every 5 minutes is a walk to a park.
And the tram all over the town.
And the tram is all over there. It makes you easy. You don't have to think. And there are cities like Freiburg, in Germany, the tram, you can actually don't even run after the tram, just hop onto the tram and hop off. It's like you don't even own a car. You don't need to own a car. You don't even need to have a bicycle.
You don't have to worry about parking fees.
You don't have to do that. I mean, it saves a lot. So I think if a city can be very efficient, it makes you more efficient as a person, and that city becomes more livable. And I think those are some of the great cities, Of course, on top of that, people factor is also important. Society, a good city is also a city where people are friendly, they are respectful, and when they do that, I guess they take care of their waste in a better manner, and then that's how you get cleaner environment. So it's actually quite a cycle, and more cities are going in those direction. They are really becoming more people-centric. And I think once they put that as a top priority, and then people will feel that they want to live and retire in those cities. Yeah. So I mean, that is actually the goal, to see Malaysian cities also become more and more livable over time. Yeah.
Looking forward to one. All right then. So I guess that's the amount of time we actually have left.
All right.
So we have now come to the end of our Q&A session. Thank you so very much, Norliza, Dato'.
Welcome.
For your time, effort. I think we learned a lot from this 30 minutes, 40 minutes of the session together. Thank you so much. So I think now I hand over the ceremony to Dr. Farah. Back to you, Farah.
Thank you everyone for your enthusiasm and participation. Let us once again give a round of applause to our honorable guests. Thank you, Norliza Hashim, for being our honored speaker for today. To all our participants, we thank you all for making time to attend the online podium today. We hope that you have gained some inspiration from our event, and we look forward to a better future. Stay safe, everyone, and see you again next time.